I am not going to lie, I have read some awful books about trauma and some that have been awesome. The ones that have been awesome have left me a better person, filled with more empathy. But the ones that have been awful have just made me feel gross about the human condition because I feel like the author was just trying to get attention. Hi, I'm Shara Ogilvie. I am a therapist and I'm working on turning author. That's what this is all about, documenting is my journey to get there. And I'm here sharing with you the time capsule of my transition from not an author to an author. So one thing that I'm really doing a lot of thinking about is how we go about writing about our trauma. And why I am so transfixed by this concept is because I'm working on a memoir right now about my own trauma stories. There was a lot of it in my childhood and a lot of it in the first couple decades plus of my adulthood. And it's made me who I am. But it's also been really hard. And there's some people that did some nasty things. And I have to write about it. So how do I go about writing that in a way that actually is helpful to other people? That is a journey for me. Because going back to what I said a minute ago, I have read some awful books. One just a couple of weeks ago that was recommended to me, and I couldn't get through it fast enough. I could tell that the author thought she was the best thing that ever happened, and that everyone else that came along, including especially her ex-husband, was the biggest dirtbag on the planet, and she was the biggest victim. And I do not want to come across like that because it was gaggy to be drugged through someone's life where they are always the victim and the hero and they never do anything wrong. And they're just, we should feel sorry for them the whole time. So, okay, I posed this question to my book coach. How do you write about trauma without being the worst and making it like a bad book? And I'll tell you the answer that she gave me, because it was awesome. She said, you need to tell your story with compassion with the intent of helping other people. So I'll say that again because it was really impactful for me. Tell your story with compassion with the intent of helping other people. And I just love that because it's so intentional. Like, what is my intention of the impact on others? It's so that they can learn and grow and receive help in their journey. And what is my intention for the world and for the people in my life is compassion. I want to add to the positivity in the world and not diminish from that. And that's a challenge when you have trauma. How can you tell your story without having it be really negative? So I just loved her answer. And so in a minute, I'm going to tell you a couple of more things that I have really, really felt helped me as I've been writing with this trauma, because it is hard. And I'll tell you a couple more things about my struggles with that too. But first, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe and comment and let me know who you are and where you come from and what your hopes are with writing, if you're just following along for fun or if you are also on a writing journey. I'd love to hear more from you about that. So, okay, first let's talk about some of my failures with writing about trauma. 7 years ago, I started writing part of my story, and it was so upsetting for me that I almost couldn't function. When I would sit down to write, I would become depressed. I couldn't focus, and I would end up leaving and going and doing yard work, like really heavy labor yard work, to get the anger out because I was so angry. And I think the takeaway for me, I did get a first draft of a particular section of my life done during that time, but it was horrible. I went back and started rereading it and I hated it with all of my heart. I hated it. And I think the lesson for me in that is I needed to get it out. So it's okay that it was awful writing, but also I wasn't really ready, to share that story with the world. It was too fresh. It was too painful. It was too distressing. That it's like I had to go through that draft. I had to go through that experience of writing that draft for me, but it definitely was not worthy of sharing with anybody, and that was okay. So I guess my message for you would be, if you track at all with any of that, if you identify with that, is just to be like okay with that messy process. That if you're, I guess, struggling with, I can't write it from a place of compassion yet, I'd say, well, then write it not from a place of compassion. Write it from your anger and from your hurt. You can work on compassion later if you don't have that available to you yet. And then if you're saying, yeah, and it stresses me out to no end to write it, but I still feel compelled to write it. If you don't feel compelled to write it, then don't. Why are you writing it? But if you feel compelled to write it and it's so deeply stressful, then I actually recommend what I did, which was some hard physical labor. It helps that trauma move through your body. So I did heavy duty yard work, like moving rocks and stuff like that. But you could do jogging, you could do punching a punching bag or whatever. But it was really helpful for me to like feel the feelings and then just go take it out on something very, very physical. I think you have to go through what you're going through. You can't fast track being to the place of compassion and forgiveness. You have to like arrive at it and feel it, but just know that your intention is to move past that. All right, so I'm going to give a couple of other tips of things that I am finding is working for me now to write on my trauma. I'm still struggling with trauma reactions as I write. As I write about childhood things, it's not quite so bad. That was a long time ago. But when I write about my first marriage, I still feel so much betrayal and anger and hurt. I mean, not overwhelming, not like it was 7 years ago, but I still wonder, have I forgiven him? And if I really think about it, I think I have, but it still hurts to write about the stories. So the couple of things that I have found is helping me through this, and I hope it helps you too if you're going through the same thing, is number one, to write in little doses. So that might be 30 minutes or 60 minutes. Obviously, if you need to do it less, that's fine. But for me, a long writing session would be 3, 4, 5 hours. So 30 minutes is a pretty small dose. But if I don't feel like I have it in me to write for more than 30 minutes or an hour about the trauma, then I will switch to doing some outlining or some developmental work or planning content for platforms. I will switch it up. I'll still do something that moves the needle forward on my goals, but I will move out of writing the trauma. Another thing I will do is I'll switch places in time. If I'm writing about a time when I'm 30 and it's overwhelming, I'll switch and I'll write to something about something when I was, 5 or 10 years later. So I might fast forward to another place in the book that wasn't quite as upsetting. Another thing is I have to pray for strength. I'm a Christian. I'm a very prayerful person. I take it seriously that I'm writing. I believe that writing is a sacred act because you're really thinking through what you're trying to create. You're trying to do something to help humanity and honor God. And I know that God helps us. So I actually pray a lot to give me strength, to give me wisdom, and to help me become a more enlightened person, to fill me with compassion and forgiveness and help me to tell the story that needs told. That is important for me because not only does it help me remember my values of why I'm writing, but it actually is inviting God to help me, and I know that He does. That's very, very helpful. The last thing that I do is I rely on my support network, and that sounds really generic, but I'll say what it is it's mostly my husband. I do have some friends and a couple family members I'll talk to a little bit about my writing, but I don't really get into it too deep. Because who has that time? But my husband's there for me, and I don't know who's there for you, but you need somebody. If you don't have a great husband, if you have a friend, a mother, a coworker, a writer's group, it doesn't matter, but you need someone to say, hey, this is hard, or I need to talk about this, or I'm feeling some self-doubt here, or whatever. And that just makes all the difference. But even on days or weeks where I don't talk to him about my writing, knowing that he believes in me and that he's in my court gives me strength. And that is, you can't put a price tag on that. And also the fact that I have a book coach is very helpful. I've talked about my book coach in the last few episodes on and off. She's very meaningful to me because she believes in me. I'm not anything special. She's not believing in me because I'm some incredibly gifted person and she has selected me to be her client. I'm just a client, but she does believe in me and I see it, and it matters to me because she's somebody in the business who knows what she's doing, and if she believes in me, then maybe I can believe. in me. And I have mentioned in previous episodes, I do have a download with her information of how you can find her courses. She doesn't even know I'm mentioning her or her courses. I definitely don't get anything from mentioning that. I'm doing it because I care about you and I care about the work, and she has helped me. So if she can help you too with her courses, I'm a private client of hers too, but if she could help you with her courses, then why not? Feel free to take them. She's a wonderful person, and they've been very, very helpful to me in my writing journey. So I will link to the download that talks about her courses in the description. So just to kind of recap, writing about trauma is very upsetting. It's also healing. It's good for you, but depending on your timetable and where you're at, for me, for sure, this has been a multi-year journey to get to the place where I have done enough work with my trauma that I can write in a way that, as my book coach tells me I should write from a place of compassion with the intention to help other people. And I am doing that as I take the trauma in small doses, remember my intention, why I'm doing it, pray for strength, turn to my support system if I need that. And again, just keep circling back to that intentionality. And I think about it every single time I write. I want to write from a place of enlightenment. I want to write from a place of compassion with the intention to help other people. And I think that is the best way to write. All right, I hope you catch up on previous episodes of my vlog of writing so that you can follow along with me and learn as I go. And I'll see you next time.